What is going on, everybody? How is everybody doing today? We had another good day of NBA hoops yesterday on Sunday, and there wasn't too many games that went down. We only had 5 games that were played, so I'm going to just talk about all those games specifically, and I also want to talk about some of the biggest takeaways I have throughout the first weekish of the NBA season starting. So honestly, one big takeaway I'm going to have is the emergence of Ivica Zubac for the LA Clippers. He has just looked phenomenal in this secondary scoring role for the Clippers. With Kawhi Leonard hurt, Paul George is gone. We all thought that James Harden could be the one averaging 30 points a night, and while that still could definitely be true, Harden has been scoring a ton, hasn't been the most efficient, but he's been scoring throughout the start of the season. Ivica Zubac has been off to a fantastic start for the LA Clippers. He had 21 points and 9 rebounds against the Phoenix Suns in their first game of the year. In the second game, he had 24 points, 15 rebounds, and 4 assists. And last night's win against the Golden State Warriors, he had 23 points, 6 assists, 18 rebounds. He played 37 minutes in this game as well. And Zubac just looks so comfortable inside. I think that's always been something we've known about his game, that he's got a silky touch inside. He knows where to be on the floor. He can set some good screens. He's going to be a fantastic rebounder, but he's just having more of an opportunity for the Clippers, and he could be a massive X factor. There's a reason why they extended him towards the end of the offseason, and he got paid a decent amount of money, because this is the production that he could put on every single night. And I always thought he was one of the more underrated big mans. I didn't think we were going to get this start from Zubac to start off this year, but if he's going to play like this throughout the course of the season, the Clippers could definitely be in more of a play-in conversation, playoff conversation than we originally thought, because when Kawhi went down, everyone's like, all right, this is going to be a 12 seed, maybe the 11th seed in the Western Conference. No way they make the play-in tournament. But if they're going to be getting this great two-man game out of James Harden and Ivica Zubac, they could definitely make a run towards the end of the season. I thought Norman Powell has done a very good job for the Clippers so far. Derrick Jones Jr. has been knocking down his threes, something he was inconsistent at times with the Dallas Mavericks. We saw those flashes. He's been a good shooter out of the gate. He's been showcasing his athleticism and his defense. Terrence Mann has not been as good for the LA Clippers. I would say he's been a little bit disappointing. It feels like he's lost out there, maybe not as confident in his shot, and maybe the shot selection hasn't been great. Chris Dunn has been very good on the defensive end of the floor, and I just think this Clippers team has definitely exceeded expectations so far. They've been competitive in all their games. They ended up beating the Denver Nuggets. They lost to the Phoenix Suns. They beat the Golden State Warriors. These are good teams. So yeah, shout out to Ivica Zubac and the Clippers so far. As for Golden State, yeah, this sucks that Steph Curry already suffered an ankle injury. It's looking like it's not going to be too serious, but it definitely is going to look like he's going to miss some games coming up. So for the Warriors, who have been running out a 12-man rotation, let's see some guys step up. I think Jonathan Kuminga hasn't had the start to the season that maybe he would have liked after not getting a contract extension done with the Warriors in the offseason. I would like to see him maybe take it up a notch. Andrew Wiggins has shown some really good flashes to start off this year as well, some aggressiveness. The shot looks very good. So if they can get a super high aggressive Andrew Wiggins, that could be huge for them. And Buddy Hield had a good start to the year against the Portland Trail Blazers, against the Utah Jazz. Did not have as good of a game against the LA Clippers. He ended up going 3 of 14 from the field and 1 of 9 from 3. And when you sign Buddy Hield, you know that you are going to get these games here and there. You just hope they're not as frequent as they definitely could be. So for the Warriors, I want to see Jonathan Kuminga step up. I want to see Brandon Podziemski step up as well, because I am very high on Brandon Podziemski, and he has not had the greatest start to this season. So I want to see those two young guys around Andrew Wiggins and Buddy Hield really carry this Warriors offense while Steph Curry is out, because this is the team that is going to be fighting for play-in, playoff spots all year long, and they really can't afford to lose some of these games down the stretch. Like this Clippers game was definitely one they could have won. So like these games are going to matter when we look back at the records in November and October, when we're in April and we're finding out who's a game out of a playoff spot, who's a game out of a play-in tournament spot. So these games are going to matter a ton. Draymond Green's got to lead this team while Steph Curry is out. It is a shame though, because Steph's getting up there in age. He's had ankle injuries in the past, so hopefully this one isn't going to keep him out too long. Now I think some takeaways too. There's been some disappointing Eastern Conference starts. So for the Indiana Pacers, we talked about their game 1 win against the Detroit Pistons. They had to come back in that fourth quarter to beat an inferior Pistons team. And then they play Friday night at Madison Square Garden. The Knicks were coming off probably like one of the worst performances we have seen so far this season against the Boston Celtics, and they get blown out by 25 points against the Knicks at the Garden. And then they get their first home game, which is hosting the Philadelphia 76ers, who do not have Paul George or Joel Embiid. Tyrese Maxey has struggled with his efficiency to start off the year, and they end up losing this game in overtime. Once again, another game they could have won. They definitely could have lost this game in regulation, but Tyrese Halliburton hit a crazy 3 to send it to OT, and he just did not play well in overtime, in my opinion. I need Siakam to be more aggressive with the ball in his hands, because I think Pascal Siakam has been their best player so far, but he hasn't really been showcasing it. Benedict Mathurin did not have a good game against Philadelphia. Halliburton definitely had his best game of the year against the 76ers, but I still feel like something's off with him. The playmaking wasn't there. Maybe he sacrificed some of the playmaking for the shot to go in, because he was struggling with his shot. He goes 4 of 9 from 3 in this game, but he only had 2 assists. And for Halliburton standards, you would think he would not really be putting on those performances when you're scoring 114 points. I think Miles Turner needs to be better as well on the offensive end of the floor. I still like what I'm seeing defensively, but on the offensive end, I'd like to see him perform a little bit better. Same with Andrew Nembhard and Aaron Nesmith. I think these guys that were so important to the Pacers in the playoffs need to get in their groove quicker and sooner than later, because, yeah, I would say this has been a disappointing start for the Indiana Pacers. For the Philadelphia 76ers, though, hey, you're just happy to win one game here, because you ended up losing to Milwaukee, you lost to Toronto, a game you probably should have won even without Embiid and Paul George. So it's nice to see this impressive win on the road against Indiana. You got a great performance out of Eric Gordon. He had 15 points. He shot 50% from the field. Maxey was off to a really tough start in this game as well after inefficient first 2 games of the year, but he had a really strong second half and overtime. He ended up with 45 points. He goes 12 of 15 from the line, 5 of 17 from 3, though, so he was a lot better inside the arc. Caleb Martin was, I think, a good enough role player for them. They made some questionable decisions, especially in overtime and some fouling stuff, but he ended up getting 17 points in this one and 12 rebounds, and at least made some hustle plays, which caught my eye in this one. So it's looking like Joel Embiid should be back soon. It might be against the Detroit Pistons coming up, so we'll see. So I guess without PG and Embiid, you take the 1-2 start for Philadelphia. And then I would say another disappointing team so far with the Indiana Pacers. They're also 1-2 in the Central Division, and that's the Milwaukee Bucks. The Milwaukee Bucks ended up beating the Philadelphia 76ers to start off the year. That same team that didn't have Embiid and Paul George, and it didn't really look, I think, super pretty in that game. There was definitely some things they had to figure out. And then they lost to the Chicago Bulls by double digits, which also was kind of a shocker. They gave up 133 points to the Bulls. And then this was the one that really was like, what is going on in Milwaukee? They ended up losing 115-102 yesterday to the Brooklyn Nets. This team was supposed to be the worst projected team in the NBA, and you're losing by double digits against them with Giannis playing, with Dame playing. I know Chris Middleton is out, but is Chris Middleton really going to be the savior? Because at one point, maybe Middleton, replaces Taurean Prince in the starting lineup, and Prince and Bobby Portis are your main guys off the bench. But honestly, I don't have so much confidence in Prince being a huge impact player for them throughout the course of the year. Like Bobby Portis, I have no worries about. I think he's going to be completely fine, and he's had some good performances this year. But the rest of this bench has not been great. I think DeLon Wright has been fine defensively, but man, you're not really getting much out of him offensively. Same with Pat Connaughton at this point. I still think he's like a negative player, but they just have to pretty much play him because they have nobody else, and he's getting paid a decent amount of money. AJ Green really hasn't been that great to start off the year, and they're really not doing anything with MarJon Beauchamp, Tyler Smith, or AJ Johnson right now. And the fact that Doc Rivers is their head coach also doesn't give me the most confidence that they're going to turn this thing around right now. But for Milwaukee, you have to say this is a disappointing start to the season for sure, because I think Giannis has actually looked fine. I think Dame has looked all right as well. Brook Lopez, I think, has been good defensively. I'd like for him to be a little bit more consistent offensively, but I know what I'm getting out of him defensively, and it's still super valuable. But yeah, kind of a crazy that Milwaukee ended up losing by double digits to the Brooklyn Nets in the 3rd game of the season. And yeah, shout out to Cam Thomas in this one. Shout out to Dennis Schroeder. Schroeder had 29 points, 8 of 15 from the field. Cam Thomas had 32 points, 10 of 21 from the field. And in a 3-game sample size this year, Cam Thomas is averaging 31 points, 5 rebounds. He's shooting 48% from the field, 46% from 3, and 90% from the line. Yeah, the odds were like plus 4,000 for Cam Thomas to win the scoring title. I don't think he still wins that award, but man, through 3 games, you're averaging 30 points on solid efficiency, and you even got a win against the Milwaukee Bucks. Shout out to Cam Thomas this year. We had the Portland Trailblazers pick up their first win of the season against the New Orleans Pelicans. They lost in heartbreaking fashion the other night, so they got a second straight game against the Pelicans, and they looked a lot better in this game. That is now back-to-back really good Jeremy Grant performances. And Jeremy Grant struggled at the start of this game, so it was nice to see him really get into his rhythm and his flow and take better shots throughout the course of this game. Anthony Simons had his best performance of the year, 27 points, 6 assists, 5 of 10 from 3. And this, honestly, very competitive Blazers squad. And I think they're going to be still like at the bottom of the Western Conference, but I think most of their games can still be somewhat competitive. I know game 1, they got blown out by the Warriors, but this is still a respectable roster, and they could definitely pull off wins against the Pelicans and these teams and hold Zion to 14 points, 3 of 12 from the field for Zion Williamson. Yeah, the inside paint presence from the Trailblazers was really solid in this one. CJ McCollum, you knew he wanted to play very well against his former team. He had 27 points. I'm not really thinking too much about the Pelicans here. I mean, they are banged up with no DeJounte Murray and Trey Murphy right now, but it was nice to see the Blazers pick up a win. And then another game was the OKC Thunder getting off to a 3-0 start. The Atlanta Hawks were 2-0 going into this one. The Thunder blew them out 128-104. Trae Young had a good game in this one, 24 points and 8 assists, but he did have 10 turnovers. I mean, this OKC Thunder defense is going to be a nightmare for opposing guards, especially if you're going up against Lou Dort and Cason Wallace and Alex Caruso. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander had his first, I feel like, MVP stamp game this season. 35 points, 9 assists, 11 rebounds for Shai, 3 of 8 from 3, 10 of 11 from the line. He was a team high plus 24 in this one. 3 steals and 3 blocks. This was actually an unreal performance from Shai, who looked so comfortable, was getting to the rim with ease, and this is the guy I predicted to win MVP this season, as the Thunder are now 3-0. Another great Chet Holmgren offensive performance. It was nice to see Jalen Williams have a good offensive performance as well. Also 6 blocks for Chet. Like, a lot of people were predicting maybe Wemby could win Most Improved this year. What if that's just Chet? What if Chet just honestly, even though he shouldn't win the award because he was a former 2nd overall pick, but he has been unreal on both ends of the floor, and it's looking like OKC is going to have multiple All-Stars. Also, something I'm keeping an eye on, Jalen Johnson hasn't had the best start to the year. A lot of people, including me, thought that Jalen Johnson could take another leap this year with no DeJounte Murray. In their first game against the Brooklyn Nets, he shot 44% from the field and had 11 points, and then their second game against the Charlotte Hornets, a game they won, he had 16 points on 26% shooting, and then yesterday against the Thunder, 7 points, 4 turnovers, 23% from the field, 3 of 13 from the field. Not a good start for Jalen Johnson. I think he's maybe not taking the best shots in the world. I don't think he's really slowing the game down, and it's a lot of, like, I think fast pace trying to get to the rim and maybe not taking the greatest shot. I think that's something he's just gonna have to work on, be a little bit more calm, because Dyson Daniels is getting his shots. Aneka Okongwu, these guys are all getting their shots around Trae Young. Let him work and be a secondary complementary scoring option to Trae, and don't try too much yourself. So yeah, that's it for me. Hope you guys did enjoy. Let me know kind of what you're taking away throughout this NBA season so far. So my takeaways here was shout out to Ivica Zubac to start. Definitely keeping an eye on this Milwaukee Bucks' bench. Indiana as well. What's going on with Aaron Nesmith and Andrew Nembhard? And I think Jalen Johnson needs to work on some things as well. If you guys did enjoy, I would appreciate you dropping a thumbs up. Like I said, let me know in the comments what you guys think so far. I'll catch y'all in the next one. Peace.